Imagine a whole region devastated by a catastrophic natural disaster. You're suddenly facing a critical shortage of doctors, and you're dealing with an incredibly challenging, rugged, mountainous geography. So how do you rebuild healthcare from the absolute ground up? Well, the answer lies in the incredible story of the Azad Jammu and Kashmir Medical College, or AJKMC for short. Today's explainer takes us right into the heart of this fascinating transformation. Whether you're a public health nerd, a logistics enthusiast, or just love brilliant problem solving, we're going to look at the exact anatomy of this institution, how it was built to literally heal a region.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to dissect this institution layer by layer, kind of like a complex medical subject. Our roadmap today covers 1. Rise from the rubble, 2. The digital command center, 3. Anatomy of the campus, 4. Retaining top medical talent, and finally, 5. Equity and admissions.
All right, starting with Section 1, Rise from the Rubble, a healthcare lifeline.
To truly understand AJKMC, we have to start at the ultimate problem it was designed to solve. Back in 2005, a devastating earthquake paralyzed local health dispensaries across Kashmir. It brutally exposed a massive critical shortage of homegrown medical professionals in the region. And you can't just ship doctors in forever. You actually have to build them locally. So, exactly 6 years later, on October 8, 2011, AJKMC was formally inaugurated by the Prime Minister. Fast forward to today, and it's this flagship medical center actively supporting 500 medical students across 5 simultaneous academic batches.
Now, the institution operates under a very clear mission: to serve humanity, pursue knowledge with passion, and excel as compassionate doctors and healthcare leaders of tomorrow. But here's the kicker. These aren't just empty, passive slogans thrown on a brochure to look good. These are the actual rigorous competency benchmarks for their curriculum. Graduates are heavily evaluated on their clinical autonomy, their ethical personal standards, and their real-world healthcare leadership.
Moving on to Section 2, the Digital Command Center.
Now, managing a massive logistical medical operation in this kind of mountainous geography requires a serious digital nervous system. What's really interesting here is the stark contrast you see compared to most modern university websites. You know the ones, they act like glossy promotional country clubs trying to sell you a lifestyle. AJKMC's web portal, it's delightfully old school and functional. It acts as a strict operational bulletin board. The focus is 100% on real-time urgent tickers, direct utility downloads, and rigid administrative tracking. This digital gateway is basically a high-speed lane for students and admins to completely bypass the physical red tape. It directly manages the CMH house job pipeline, meaning medical grads can track their clinical training slots and interview schedules instantly. It hosts real-time MBBS admission profile forms. It handles public procurement and tender notices, strictly aligned with regional PPRA transparency frameworks, and it securely connects students straight into the National Higher Education Digital Library, which gives them access to over 75,000 global scientific journals. It's literally all about efficiency and hitting those deadline-driven operational windows.
Okay, Section 3, Anatomy of the Campus, Structural Blueprints.
Moving from the digital skeleton to the physical one, we land on a really high-impact number: 20. The academic curriculum, the faculty pools, the clinical assignments at AJKMC, they aren't just lumped together into one big building. They're intricately spread across 20 highly specialized teaching departments and support wings.
The journey of a medical student here is like a highly structured puzzle. It starts in the preclinical foundations. We're talking 7 departments, including anatomy, complete with its own dissection hall and cold storage, alongside physiology and biochemistry. This is where they learn the absolute basic building blocks of the human body. Then, as they progress, they transition into the 13 clinical and specialized units. This is the advanced, high-stakes stuff. They're tackling everything from general surgery and pediatrics to highly complex fields like neurology, cardiology, and orthopedics.
But you might be wondering, how do they ensure all this intense training actually carries weight, both nationally and globally? Well, let's see how this builds. They rely on a rigid 3-step validation matrix. Step 1, the Pakistan Medical and Dental Council, or PMDC, provides the statutory recognition necessary for graduates to actually practice. Step 2, the University of Health Sciences in Lahore acts as the degree-awarding body which standardizes all the exams and curricula. And Step 3, the absolutely crucial active clinical training is provided by their affiliated hospitals.
Speaking of those hospitals, the structural integration here is frankly brilliant. AJMC doesn't rely on some isolated private clinic. Instead, they leverage an incredibly effective civil-military alliance. On one side, you've got the Combined Military Hospital, or CMH, in Muzaffarabad. This is where third, fourth, and final year students train under the supervision of military specialists from the Pakistan Army Medical Corps. They're tackling high-intensity trauma and critical care. So you literally have national defense medical infrastructure preparing civilian doctors for field emergencies. On the flip side is the Abbas Institute of Medical Sciences, or AIMS, providing vital hands-on civilian field training in areas like pediatrics and internal medicine. Now, of course, a multi-campus setup like that requires serious logistics. They run a centralized shuttle fleet that daily connects the theoretical lecture blocks at the Ambor campus all the way across town to the clinical rounds at CMH and AIMS. It's this physical transit that literally bridges the gap between the classroom whiteboard and the hospital bed. Section 4. Retaining top medical talent. The financial lifeblood. You know, building a hospital is one thing, but how do you stop brain drain in a rugged mountain region when your top doctors could easily just pack up and leave for wealthier provinces? You build a financial immune system. Over 895 million Pakistani rupees. That is the financial lifeblood allocated by the government under the Federal Parity Framework. It's the exact, legally modernized cost of aligning AJKMC faculty pay with premium federal medical standards. It's designed specifically to keep specialized medical faculty right where they are needed most. So the crucial point is really how they distribute these funds. A fantastic example of this is the non-practicing allowance, or NPA. Think about it. If you're a professor of anatomy, you aren't running some lucrative private commercial clinic in the evenings like a surgeon might be able to. To prevent these vital baseline educators from feeling financially sidelined, the state pays them this specific financial bonus. It literally compensates them for not practicing privately, which protects their full-time focus on teaching and institutional research. It's an absolute game changer. And that specialized allowance model doesn't just stop there. The institution specifically targets different types of medical stress with tailored financial relief. There's a special healthcare allowance to boost overall take-home pay, allowing the public sector to actually compete with private hospitals. There's a medical risk allowance, specifically for the surgeons who are quite literally in the trenches managing high-hazard trauma and infectious disease units. And then there's a house rent compensatory matrix, which provides an allowance of roughly 45% of the basic pay bracket for any faculty members who aren't assigned on-campus executive housing. It is just a brilliantly engineered retention system.
And finally, Section 5, Equity in Admissions. Engineering the student body.
So we've talked about the buildings, the digital systems, and the professors, but what about the real lifeblood of the college, the students themselves? How do you prevent well-funded urban centers from completely dominating the medical pipeline across such a diverse territory? Well, the incoming MBBS class of roughly 100 seats is carefully divided up through a strict statutory matrix. There is a district-wise open merit distribution that spans all 10 administrative districts of Azad Kashmir, based entirely on population. Then, you've got dedicated allocations for Kashmiri refugees, reciprocal provincial goodwill seats from places like Punjab and Sindh, and finally, reserve seats for overseas and foreign nationals.
Those overseas and foreign national seats, they are particularly fascinating from an administrative standpoint. They run on a self-financed tier, which is evaluated in foreign currency. That means these international and expatriate students are generating critical financial reserves that feed directly back into localized campus infrastructure and maintenance. It's just an incredibly smart way to subsidize a public utility.
And once those students finally arrive, do not expect to see them rolling into an 8 a.m. lecture in sweatpants. There is a strict professional decorum enforced both on campus and during hospital rounds. Male students have to wear a white button-up shirt, dark trousers, a tie, and formal shoes. Female students wear a white shalwar kameez with a maroon or white dupatta, and both must wear the mandatory embroidered knee-length white lab coat. This strict uniform policy ties directly back to one of their core competencies, ethical personal standards. Professionalism literally starts the second they put that coat on. So, does all this rigorous planning and financial structuring actually work? Well, here is the ultimate proof of success. 650 plus. That is the number of recognized research publications generated collectively by the faculty, many of which are featured in their very own Kashmir Journal of Medical Sciences. This isn't just some abstract academic exercise. This is vital research specifically aimed at shaping local public health policy, improving surgical outcomes, and planning disaster relief strategies. The exact kind of disasters that necessitated building this college in the first place.
And this brilliantly illustrates the power of starting with a massive problem and engineering a hyper-specific solution for it. Which leaves us with this final thought. How can purposeful institutional design, much like AJMC's blend of military infrastructure integration and highly targeted financial retention, solve regional healthcare crises globally? Can this localized blueprint be exported to heal other broken regions around the world? It's certainly something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning and keep asking those big questions.